Yeah. I didn't get to go to the Gaudi to the park. No, I went to the park, but not to the inside of it. To the church.
All right.
I live right in front of the Sagrada Familia. I've never been inside either.
Oh my gosh.
You have to pay, man. And they have international masses on Sundays where you don't have to pay. I woke up 3 times in a row on the Sunday like, hey, I'm awake early. I think I'll go check it out. And then I come and I was the last one or second, third to last in the line, and they said, no, sorry, it's full now. So I thought, okay, Christian God doesn't want me in there, sorry.
All right. Have a seat.
What should we talk about?
I don't know.
All right. So,
Who do I talk to?
to the microphone, I'm going to pass it to you.
Okay.
But, all right, guys, here we are at Acapulco, Mexico. I have my buddy Tim here, which I recently met. We were supposed to. Henry. Why do I have Tim?
Tim is a name that I could be. I could be a Tim in another life.
Okay.
We
So
met
that's
in another
we'll
life
start it
itself.
again. Okay. I don't know why I had Tim, and that has happened, Gus. Yeah.
Okay, and that was Gus.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've been met so many people here, and the names are the hardest part.
Right.
Yeah.
But I had you like down as Tim. I don't know why.
Nick.
See, this is why we gotta work on these things: is practice.
That's right.
Hey, that's okay.
All right, guys. So Gus here. Not live, but live from Acapulco, Anarchapulco, Mexico. And I have Henry here next to me. We're going to talk to him. Just met him a few days ago, but he was a hope and heart, really beautiful human being who was right away pulled me into a little circle. We had great conversations, and we made a plan to go surfing, go meditating, which is his expertise, and then I was going to try to give him some insights into surfing. Turns out I had a fever that night, the night before, so I needed a rest, so I sent him a message, and I just finally actually saw him, and as I was coming out here, I knew I wanted to do a video. I didn't know what was going to be about, and when I saw Tim with his awesome Columbia shirt, not Tim. Here we go. For some reason, I have Tim in my mind.
Another life after Tim. That's
yes,
okay. That's totally
it has to be that. So, so Henry.
You can be Tim. I don't mind.
Or Tim.
It doesn't matter to me.
Yes, it must have been in another life. Talk to me. What has been your experience here at Anarchapulco? Is this your first Anarchapulco?
Yeah, this is my first in Acapulco.
Okay. So I'm going to let Henry, not Tim, share a little bit of his experience. I know my experience has been unbelievable. Opening my heart and connecting with people, really getting inspired and really leaving here with a sense of purpose. I knew why I came here, but I'm leaving certain of the work that needs to be done. So, Tim, please share anything that shows up in your heart from your experience being here at Anarchapulco. And thank you for being here with me.
Gus, I'm just honored to be here. This is my first time at Anarchapulco. I've been wanting to go for the last 3 years, and I've ran into some problems where I just didn't pull the trigger. Part of me was scared. Part of me didn't really understand this is a dangerous city in Mexico. These are the crypto world, the anarchy world. And even though I'm an anarchist in theory, because I believe no slave, no master, which is the beautiful slogan that we get talked about, I've been scared, man. Like, I think that's been why I haven't done interviews as much for the last few years, why I'm only just starting a podcast and YouTube channel, is I've had a lot of fear inside. And it's not fear of sharing my truth, it's fear of how society would accept my truth. And seeing and waving goodbye to a good friend Nick from Barcelona, who was teaching me some yoga moves, and incredibly powerful how much you can chain yourself in flexibility over a year of practice. He was in a full lotus, which I thought was really cool. And like, surfing's on my bucket list. I've never been, and I'm looking forward to an example, a training class. I love being a student of life. So being in Anarchapulco 2019, for me, it's all about being a student. I don't know very much. So I have a couple questions for you that I'd love to learn about. And a couple of them start with, how did you get started surfing? Like, what drew you to that, Gus?
Well, actually, being raised in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, I was always half a block from the beach. So, right around, I don't know, 10 years old, 11 years old, a friend of mine, one of my best friends, Fabio, he went to Búzios, which is a city, small town north of Rio, and he came back saying that he had been surfing. And I don't know, one thing led to another, and we just started surfing, and it was so much fun. And I don't do much surfing nowadays because I'm in Miami, but it's one of the things that I'm passionate about. Like jiu-jitsu, that's a sport that I do practice nowadays. It's Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but I got started with a friend in Brazil, and every now and then when I have a chance and I see waves like here in Acapulco, I want to get out there. So. Thank you for the question.
Yeah. I love questions. I have so many of them for you, and I think part of them stems with my own experiences with my life. And all these experiences, like surfing to me, jiu-jitsu, I've never done either of those, but they both seem to be like controlling your energy, moving your flow. It's almost meditative in a way. And that's something that's really, we talked about teaching meditation has really changed my life. And it's one of those things, like my younger brother's been meditating for forever. And he was always go in his room, go meditate. And I realized that I actually meditate too in just how I live my life and how I treat people and being present. And it's challenging sometimes because our world's always moving so fast. And the faster our world moves, the faster you have to be like, okay, I gotta slow down. And I've always been like, I like to learn the opposite way. So if you do one thing, like everyone tells you to do it this way, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do the exact opposite. We're gonna see what happens. And it's definitely been an area that I've made a ton of mistakes. And I absolutely think mistakes are how you learn. It's experience. Like, I'd rather fail when I have the opportunity to fail, where I'm young, where I can have some time to like bounce back. But even the older I get, the more I want to continue failing. I want to continue learning new things. I just saw this breaking event that was just released here for the first time about the idea of having cities in the water. And did you see that talk today? And the beauty of it is this idea of control is who's writing this jurisdiction law, who's making it so you can do one thing or not do another, and what makes you, as long as you're not hurting someone else, what's the problem? Like, why do you think we live in a world of so much fear right now? Like, I'm curious for your opinion on this, Gus. Like,
well, that's a great question. I think it's, I think part of it, or a major part of it in a macro cosm would be because of the control system. The way governments are set up, the way enterprises are set up. So it's I think it's intentionally. I think it's intentional that they keep us as obedient workers. For their profit, for their ego, for their power, whatever their agenda may be. But I think that's why primarily there's instilled fear in the world. But in a inner self, in a notion of fear is the lack of connection, which is also, I think, a way of that control system, the matrix, if I may, likes to isolate us. It isolates us in our cubicles, in front of our computers, in front of our phones, in front of our TVs, in separate rooms, and that causes our soul to isolate. So where do we go? We go into the thinking mind, and we want to get approval, and we want to get reinforcement from the world, and instead of looking inside, we're so oriented to and addicted really to the outside world, to the stimuli that comes from the outside, that we end up being isolated and in fear, living in fear as if we were alone, when that's the biggest line in we're all one. This is not cheap philosophical, kumbaya, let's get together. And it's really, and I think there's a hunger for connection as human beings, and I think it's hardwired in our DNA, where we used to gather, much like these tikis behind me, for thousands of years, the tribe would get together around the fire and have these meetings. And me being active in the recovery community, 12-step, AA, that's what we do. We get together in groups and we talk. We talk about fears. So we are able to be authentic, genuine. So anyway, I think that's part of why we live in fear, because we're not connected.
That's a beautiful answer, Gus. Like, well, the thing that's beautiful is we all have our own experience. No matter where we are, no matter who we've met in our life, no matter what good, bad, and ugly events we've gone through, I think that's the beauty of our souls. Our souls are infinite. Yes. And it's something, for me, it's hard to put into words. It's hard to communicate in a way that people resonate with, except for the more you speak from your heart, not your head, not your lower chakras, as they say, the more you can express yourself. And it's okay if you make mistakes. It's okay if you mumble. It's okay if you ums or ahs. Like, these are things I've kind of realized is people actually appreciate you being human by having flaws. And sometimes something that has been a challenge in my life is I'm an avid reader. I'm one of those people who like learns a subject and I'm like, okay, I'm going to read like 3 books on it. Just that's what I do. And then I'm going to be like, okay, how did these people fail? How can I do that same failure, which is the opposite of what you want to do, but then you experience it yourself. And like, I think we stand on the shoulders of giants in how we learn from other people. And the more I've come to understand my own success, where what I'm doing in my life is so backwards from like 99.9% of people I met, but the beauty is that's okay. It's okay to be different than everyone else. And I'm wearing a Colombia jersey today because I was in Colombia for a good friend. Shout out to Ian and Nata. They just got married and it was an absolutely beautiful wedding and I love them to death. And with that, I learned a lot about myself through their experience at their wedding. It was a traditional Colombian wedding and they had the Hour de Loco, where they had, at midnight, they had dancers come on. And I saw my buddy Ian, like, best dancing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, man, did you like plan this? He's like, no, it was just like soul. It just like went through him. And I'm sure Brazil has a similar type of thing where when you see people's spirit and their energy, you can't stop that. It's infinite. And that's what I think our world's missing a lot of time is we have these, I don't want to say methods, but people turn to drugs or alcohol or the gym sometimes, or diet or food to cope with these mental stress challenges for things that they're like, oh, I don't love this about myself. And it's okay to have those barriers, but the more you work through, the more you look inward. Like, I still drink occasionally I'll find some Magic Green stuff, but I don't need it. And the more and more I've gone down my own path, it's the realization that it's irrelevant. I did it to help cope to be where other people are at instead of raising my frequency higher regardless. So another question for you, beautiful thing is, do you think the 12-step program applies to people regardless of any substance abuse? Just the steps you follow and how you connect with people is still important.
Yes.
Thank you, Harry. Let me just say something. Harry was telling me a story when I first met him about how he was in the business world and he was successful there, but he wasn't happy. So I think corporate banking. So to go from that to now teaching meditation and all that's 180 degrees, and that's beautiful. That's like connecting with the soul, connecting with what's important for him and his contribution to the world. So that's I honor you for being truthful to yourself. So waking up at I would say a young age, because a lot of people spend their entire lives, destroy their entire lives, on their mission to succeed and never wake up or wake up late. So now answering your question, if 12 steps philosophy would apply in other areas, or absolutely, now there are over 60 12-step fellowships in the world. So there's even people common anonymous, right? Because there are Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, etc. And the basis and the spirit and really the principles that there are behind these steps are principles of natural law. They don't change. They are immutable. So when you ground yourself in anything, I believe that that it's based in principles, right? And for those of you that are not familiar with natural law, I highly recommend take a look at Mark Passio. You know, he did great work, does great work, is in the forefront, really cutting edge of natural law and all that. So I think the 12 steps are a I would say a mainstream, because everybody knows and accepts it. Even the court system, you know, sends people because they realize that there's something behind. There's something that can get somebody from a deep hole and deliver them. You know, if they stick with the process, if they hang on, you know, spiritually awaken, you know. So I'll go briefly over the 12 steps, right? So the first step is about honesty. It's about, you know, it says somewhat in the lines of between different fellowships, you know, I'm powerless over my addiction or my alcoholism or whatever your powerlessness is, and my life have become unmanageable. So you're admitting there's a problem, right? In order for you to solve any problem, you first got to know I have a problem, and this is the problem, right? And if I couldn't do anything about it on my own, who can? Something else, a power greater than myself. We're not going to call it God. We'll call it a power greater than yourself, whatever that may be for you. So in the second step, you know, we come to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, because I was insane, doing my way, or not really my way, the programmed way, you know. So I think the 12 steps is really to find yourself. Then the third step, you turn your will and your life over to the care of that power. So if you're really in the game, you want to really change, you got to, you know, if nothing changes, nothing changes. You know, you have to do things different in order for them to show up differently in your life. Fourth step, you're going to do a personal inventory, a moral inventory of yourself. So you're going to kind of like sit down and write your history, what happened, what's your perception, right? And from that, you're going to sort out what was your part in it and what was other people's part in it. Because when you live in a world of victimization, you know, right? Well, so when we come from dysfunctionality, today one of the lectures they talk about that, the levels of consciousness. You know, at the bottom you're unconscious. So when you come from the unconscious, you know, you have to take power back, the power that we gave it away, and the power comes from owning up to our responsibility, our part. You know, and then so on. I'm not going to go through all the steps, but the fifth step, you're going to share that with the world. You're going to talk your truth. You're going to tell the truth. The sixth step, you're going to look at your shortcomings, everything that, you know, it sucks about you, and that you either conscious or unconscious do to people, and how you hurt. And you're going to go back into your inventory that you wrote, and you're going to look at it and say, yeah, I did this, and these are my character flaws. On the seventh step, you're going to ask for that power, whatever that means, you know, to remove it. Humbly ask, because if I could, I would. Yeah. And I can't, so I won't. So I need to ask for help. So it's a humbling, humility experience. And then 8 and 9 step, you're going to find the people that you have caused harm, and you're going to ask for apology. You know, and maybe they'll not give you because they're not ready, but that's fine. It's a cleansing of your own soul. You know, 10th step, you're going to try to improve your conscious contact with that power through a daily inventory. Now you're daily taking an inventory so you don't accumulate more garbage in your life, more load and baggage. And then 11th step, you're going to try to improve your which is where I'm at. I'm trying to improve my prayer and meditation, you know, and that's how I connected with Harry. It was, you know, I need to learn a little bit more or explore this area of meditation. So I'm in my path of the 12 steps. It's an ongoing path. And then after you've been enlightened, you know, after you finish the 12 step, now you're able to help other people. And I really think that's the overall mission of any kind of consciousness of awakening, is to connect with other human beings and share your experience, because really that's what we can share, our own experience. We can't fake it. We can't go and try to teach people what we haven't walked through or we haven't learned. So I'm sorry it was a long answer, but thank you for the question. And now I have a question for you, because this is a fair game. This is a two-way. In your journey, if you could summarize your journey from your spiritual awakening journey, because this is what I believe this is, a spiritual awakening journey. What has happened? If you can tell the short version, and I say that because I have to go meet Mr. Bruce for a workshop that he's doing now. Okay. And you're welcome to come if you would like. So tell us a short version of your awakening and how that came to be, from where you were programmed and you follow all the right, and you end up in banking, and I'm sure inside that world you're very successful, and to being at Anarchapulco with a Columbia shirt, an open heart. So share with us this experience, please.
Gus, thank you for asking me that question.
Let me just make sure that we're still on, that it's still recording, that we're not. So give me a second.
Of course. I'll just sit here and sing for no reason. Are we on or are we off?
First, thank you for sharing the 12 steps. There's something I've read about, but hearing them from someone who's going through them and experienced them, it just resonates much deeper at a journey. And I think this is where you answered my question about my soul, and it's a journey of self-love. And it's a journey of, am I listening to other people in the world who are very successful, who have been smart, who have done those checklist items, go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a job, buy a house, make a lot of money, become wealthy, get married, have kids. I followed those for a long time. Like I've always been, how do I say this? I've been lazy. And I say I've been lazy not because I'm a lazy person, but because I found the system really simple. From a really young age, I kind of figured out, like, okay, this is how the game works. Once I figured out the game, like I played Monopoly as a kid, and people are like, oh, you're cheating. I'm like, I'm not cheating. I read the rules. And I was one of those people who could... We're probably getting dark too here too. Well, I'll share whatever I can.
But it's good. The light is good.
I appreciate it. And I've always been one of those people who's like, what are the rules? And I've learned the rules, and society has these rules for you. And as a kid, I was always asking questions. I was curious. I would go over to people who I saw as like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old. I'd be like, oh, I really love your shoes. No idea who they were. I just liked their shoes, and I wanted to tell them, because my love language, from Gary Chapman's words of affirmation. So I enjoy when people say those things to me. So I've always been like, oh, I like to say them to other people. Some people enjoy it, some people don't. But at a young age, I realized kind of what I liked. It was, how does society view me? So a lot of my life was, okay, I'm going to be really good at whatever I do, so society will view me in this lens. I got really lucky. When I was younger, I did some really advanced math programs. But I spent a lot of time with kids who were more autistic, who had challenging social skills, versus when I played sports, people were a little bit more outgoing, a little more confident, a little more connected. And having this extreme difference for me, I realized that I would judge the people who I thought were weird, even though they were just human beings, they were smart, they were doing their own path. And I would look for the Gus's of the world, for people to tell me, hey, you're doing well, and like giving me compliments and telling me, oh, you're on the right path. And the older I got, especially when I hit puberty, once I hit puberty, it became more of a big deal for me, where I cared even more what people thought internally. Externally, everyone had no idea, because I'm confident, I'm outgoing, I'm talkative. Like I probably hugged 1,000 people at this conference. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, that's the first thing. It's a heart-to-heart hug to me is just really powerful energy, and you connect on a deeper level. But in my experience, in my journey, I cared what everyone else thought. I cared what my friends thought. I cared what my family thought. I cared about all this stuff, and I wasn't authentically myself. I was like fitting the mold of a box. And my uncle, he and I had met, and he was very successful in business, and he still is, and he gave me 2 pieces of advice. He told me, work your way up at a big bank and treat every single person the same, from the CEO to the janitor. And for some reason, that second piece of advice hit me so much more than the first piece of advice. I did both, And sometimes I didn't always treat people well, and that's because I didn't treat myself well. And it was this area of, I would be not necessarily mean to people, but I would point out flaws, I'd point out weaknesses, because I thought it would help them in their journey to have that feedback, not realizing that I came off as an asshole, or I came off as negative, or I came off as that person. So I spent so many years just being really positive, everything, no matter what the bad situation was. It's like, okay, it'll be fine, y'all. And I would just support other people and basically sacrifice my own health, my own well-being. I didn't necessarily drink a lot, but I drank more than I would have liked to, and not for me. So I could be in a situation where I could give myself to other people and meet them where they were. And I can go on for hours and hours and hours about my journey, but Kundalini Yoga had been something that my brother introduced me to probably 4 years ago. And he was a brother, he's younger than me, but I've always looked up to him because he's been always very in touch with a spiritual side. He's done meditations, he's done more yoga. I remember he had Vibrams, the shoes that are basically fit your feet, and they're a glove for your feet. And he always had these crazy weird ideas. I'm like, well, this is really cool. Like, I like this. I love the fact that he's doing this stuff. And he did it for himself. He didn't do it for everyone around. And I was one of those people who's like, I'm not going to do it because of what other people think. And Kundalini Yoga, if you've never done it, I highly recommend it. I fell in love, honestly, the first day of class. And it was just, I had energy that I hadn't necessarily had. There's a lot of chanting, and it's one of those areas where, like, I was really insecure about my voice.
So I never wanted to sing in public or share myself this way. But understanding once in a rainy day, you gotta be you.
Frank Sinatra, My Way, comes to me. And I was insanely insecure about my voice. Insanely insecure. So Gus, that's a little about me, but chanting and putting myself past my comfort zone has always been how I've grown. And I've grown to be who I am by failing, by striking out. I've gone up to beautiful women around the world and just said, hello, you're beautiful, thank you for being you. It's not about their looks necessarily. I'll say it to anyone I meet. I'll say it to man, woman, child. I'm just like, be you. Thank you for being you. And that's something that I love to share. And it's getting dark, and we have a moon and we have a sun at the same time right now. And it's dimming a little bit. But are you a sunrise or a sunset person, Gus?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that. You know, this is Tim. This is why I'm sitting here, because, you know, it was the most, not Tim, Henry. For some reason, I keep calling him Tim. I'm going to find out why eventually, and that's the beautiful. And yes, exactly. I'll bet I'm recognizing him from another life, you know. So he's so familiar to me as Tim. But anyway, so thank you, Henry, in this life, right, for sharing your heart. And I don't think there are coincidences, as many speakers talked about. We connected that first night. We made plans. You know, I came out here to just do a video. I was going to do it by myself, and then I saw you standing here, you and two other people. That's it, and your loving heart. I said, you know what? Let's do an interview. and then I thought, how is this going to turn out? I don't know. And then it turned out a mutual interview, which I think is an awesome idea, which I'm going to implement that, which whoever I speak from now on, because, you know, if I'm sitting, you know, with anyone, you know, either be Henry or Tim or whoever, you know, isn't that a great idea that, you know, we exchange, you know, knowledge and who we are, we are able to share that. So you guys will see, this will become my motto because of Henry. So, and thank you for sharing your story and a little bit of, you know, I know in the future we're going to connect more, and, you know, we're going to meet. You're going to come down to Miami and stay with me and my family, and I'll go visit you one day, and you know, I already know we got a connection, a deep heart connection. So, and I'll end with this, answer your question, because I know that the workshop is already going on at room 1230. Yes. So if I'm a sunset guy or a sunrise guy, I am a sunset guy, but I'm looking more and more as I wake to become and to being, more than becoming, being a sunrise guy, you know, and that's I like that question. I like that perspective. So there you go. Again, for Anarchapulco, Acapulco, Mexico. Thank you again, Harry, for being who you are, just like you shared. You know, beautiful person, beautiful human being, and for sharing your heart, and for creating something that wasn't here before we connected, you know, and showing up in my life. So I'll let you close, and thank you again, with from the bottom of my heart, and from the light of my heart.
I'm going to close with a beautiful thing from Kundalini Yoga, which is Satnam. And the truth in me recognizes the truth in you. And this truth starts with yourself. It starts with understanding who you are as a human. Good, bad, ugly, it's okay. You're perfect the way you are. We're perfect the way we are. I had some wise words from a voice lesson coach, vocal improvement coach. You're perfectly imperfect, and you're imperfectly perfect. And once you can accept that in yourself and you can share your light, this is what compassion is, as we have butterflies, bugs surrounding us as we bring this good energy in the world. But I want to send love and blessings to everyone. And Gus, thank you for the opportunity. It's been beautiful. And I look forward to meeting you and your family in Miami and getting a surf lesson. That would be wonderful. So I guess we want to wave goodbye from Acapulco 2019.
Yes.
Be the change you want to see.
Yes.
Awesome, brother.
Hey, I love
Woo!
it. I love to share. Oh, there's a turtle release party as well.
Oh yeah, I heard
wanna
about
check out,
that.
and I was gonna.
I
either
heard
do
about
or,
that.
Or what was I gonna say?
I'm gonna go to that workshop, which
What is the workshop?
it's by Derek Bros. I don't know if you know who he is. He's the young man with the long hair.
Okay.